Okay, the last four examples I'm going to do all at once because they're all the same level difficulty. They're all finding the fractional powers of something. And this is, for most algebra students, a scary thing. Because typically algebra students don't like fractions very much to begin with. And now we're throwing fractions up in the power level of the problem. All right? So let's just take something we don't like to begin with and just like throw it somewhere into a level that makes numbers extremely large sometimes, as we've seen. All right? So a fractional power has two parts, a numerator and a denominator. The denominator represents the root that you're taking. The numerator represents the power you're taking. Another way of considering b to the n over d power is the d root of b to the n power. That's what that means. So anytime you're looking at a radical structure, the little number up in this notch here represents the denominator. The power inside represents the numerator of the fraction. Okay? Powers make things bigger. Roots make things smaller. So on the theme of making things easier on ourselves, we're going to do the root first to make things smaller, and then the power second to make things bigger. Okay? If you take a look at example down here, 64 to the 4/3 power, all right? The third root of 64 is 4. So if I'm going along the way, 64 to the 4/3 power, and I do it in pieces, the cube root of 64 is 4. And once I deal with the cube root, now it's not a fraction of power anymore. Now it's a whole number power. 4 to the 4th power, 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 is 256. The other option is to do 64 times 64 times 64 times 64, whatever that equals, and then take the cube root of that number, whatever that equals. That's ridiculous. All right, so cube root first, power second. Numbers are reasonable. All right, that's how you do that. So take a look at example 35.3. First thing, if the power is negative, deal with that issue first. You don't want negative powers. All right, I don't care if the number is negative, the power should be negative. So 4 to the negative half power means 1 over 4 to the 1/2 power. All right, that puts my 4 to the half power in the denominator. That's where it belongs, in the denominator. Okay, the square root of 4 is 2. And once I do the square root, the denominator is gone. I'm just left with the numerator. 2 to the first is 2. So 1/2 is the answer. So again, the negative power moved it to the bottom like it should be. The denominator 2 square rooted 4. The numerator 1 just took that to the first power. Example 4, negative 27 to the negative 1/3 power. Again, I don't care if this number is negative. I don't want this number to be negative. So what's happening here is 27 is to the negative 1/3 power, so it moves to the bottom. The minus sign is going to stick around on top. It's not attached to the radical, or to the, I should say, to the power. Okay, once you move 27 to the bottom, it's got to have a 1 there. But again, the minus sign is hanging out on top. This is to the first power. It's not negative power, so it stays where it's at. So negative 1's on top. What's the cube root of 27?
3.
What's 3 to the first power?
3.
So negative 1/3 is the answer. Okay. It's just a two-part problem. You take the root, whatever the root is, take that to the numerator power, and you're done. All right? Example 5, 16 to the 3/2 power. Notice this is positive 3/2 power, so it's ready to go, right? So 16 to the 3/2 power. So we start with the root. What's the square root of 16? 4. And then once you do the square root of 16, the denominator goes away. We're left just with the numerator. 4 times 4 times 4 is?
64.
64. Easy as promised, right? It does require us to know a few numbers, and if we don't, 4 times 4 times 4 equals on your calculator. I don't want you to do that, but if all else fails, that works. Negative 8 to negative 2/3. What needs to move?
The power.
So this has to move. Anything else have to move?
The 8.
The 8. Anything else?
Minus
Minus stays on top. Very good. 8's being raised to the power of the minus sign. So 8 moves to the bottom. The 2/3 power becomes positive 2/3 on the bottom. The minus sign is staying on top with the 1 we're going to stick up there to hold its place. And again, we got a fractional power happening here. The negative 1's not being affected by that. The cube root of 8 is 2. Once we do the cube root of 8, the denominator disappears. We're left with the numerator. 2 squared equals?
negative
4. So 4 on the bottom, negative 1 on top, so negative 1/4 is the answer. That's all fractional powers are ever going to be. Okay, for the most part, they're going to work out to nice whole numbers. In fact, right now they're going to work out to nice whole numbers every time. In future classes, they might not, in which case, use a calculator to get a decimal approximation. But in this class, you can be assured they're going to work out nicely. Expect them to work out nicely. You might get a fraction inch because of negative power, but the fractional power part is going to work out to a nice pretty number like 4 or 64 or 256 or 27 or something like that.